Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Breaking news, President Trump and his medical condition, his new diagnosis, what the White House has now revealed about the president's condition. Tonight, those images of President Trump sparking concern for weeks. Images online and questions about his health. The president seen with bruises on his hands and swelling in his legs. What the White House is now saying tonight about the diagnosis. Also tonight, there are flash flood threats as we come on the air. Severe storms from New York to Maine. Also, the deadly lightning strike at a Cub Scout gathering in a camp in New Jersey. Along the Gulf Coast at this hour, a tropical system now closing in with life-threatening rip currents. Lee Goldberg standing by with the forecast. He's tracking it all for us. Tonight, the chilling new report here, the deadly crash of that passenger jet seconds after takeoff. Tonight, the Wall Street Journal now reporting U.S. officials believe the captain intentionally cut the fuel to both engines. The co-pilot reportedly shocked, asking, why did you just cut off the fuel? More than 240 people were killed. Tonight, the growing pressure over the Jeffrey Epstein files. The White House now saying President Trump does not want a special counsel to investigate. Amid a growing number of Republicans now calling for the files to be released. The president attacking some of his own supporters, calling them stupid people for pushing for more information. Tonight, the horrific murder of paddle boarder in Maine found strangled. And now, weeks later, authorities tonight on the arrest. They say the suspect is a 17-year-old boy. Sources say on vacation there with his family. There's also news tonight about a record-breaking skydiver, his stunts known by the world. Felix Baumgartner has died, killed in a paragliding accident, smashing into the side of a hotel pool. Tonight along the East Coast, the former pro baseball player, husband and father, swept to sea by a rip current. His family witnessing the whole thing as he was trying to save another family from rip currents. Tonight, the NFL star sentenced for a high-speed crash, injuring several people. How long will he spend behind bars? This evening, the tributes to singer and actress Connie Francis. Rising to fame, overcoming heartbreaking hardship, and how her hit song "Pretty Little Baby" made a recent comeback. Turning 17, we take you to the happiest place on earth, our anniversary. TC News World Headquarters in New York. This is World News Tonight.
Photos exclusively provided to Fox and Friends showing the injuries an ICE agent obtained during an attempted arrest in Oklahoma.
It comes amid an 830% increase in assaults, and the administration is taking action against the doxing of ICE officers.
Peter Ducey is live at the White House with the latest. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. Assaults on ICE officers are up 830% when you look at January to July of this year versus January to July of last year. The big change there, of course, would be Donald Trump coming into the White House in January. And we've got these exclusive photos that hammer home how dangerous some of these assaults are. 2 days ago, ICE pulled over a Honduran national in Oklahoma City. The guy refused to get out of the car. ICE tried to remove him from the car. The suspect took off with an ICE officer stuck in his car. These injuries in the photos are from an ICE officer being dragged across the road. That is why Jose Melgar Rivas, seen on your screen here in a mugshot, is now under arrest. DHS Secretary Noem says we will prosecute, is also now talking about doxing the ICE agents, a separate issue for them. She says we will prosecute those who dox ICE agents to the fullest extent of the law. These criminals are taking the side of vicious cartels and human traffickers. We won't allow it in America. And then as for the actual physical violence, here is the acting ICE Director, Todd Lyons.
This individual was lawfully ordered deported from the country approximately 4 years ago. He was given the opportunity to leave. He had an ankle monitor on him. He wasn't being held in detention. He went ahead and cut that ankle monitor off and he fled. He dragged our officer, a couple hundred feet, caused multiple injuries. Luckily, he's going to be okay. But this is just one of the hundreds of cases across the country of these individuals that have been ordered deported or have committed crimes in the United States. Yet ICE is demonized because we're effectuating the law.
President Trump has given full authorization, full authority to these ICE officers and CBP officers to do whatever they need to do to protect themselves in situations like the one that we just talked about. But still, these violent assaults are being carried out against ICE officers. Back to you.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, Peter, there's a push with 40 different AGs to get the masks off the ICE officers. A totally different perception of what ICE needs to do.
And there is a bill kicking around in the Senate proposed by two Democrats, Cory Booker and Alex Padilla, that would unmask ICE agents. But I asked President Trump about that last week, and if it ever made its way to his desk, he is not going to sign it.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that.
No way.
All right, thanks, Peter.
So I'm on the DHS website right now, and they have pictures of remember the officer that was doxxed? The representative out in California showed a violent mob his business card, so they go and they doxed him, and they threw rocks at him. There are pictures of his bloody body. He had to go and get stitches. They were throwing rocks at him. But on their website, they say these are the individuals that are risking their lives to keep our community safer. He said they're arresting terrorists, murderers, pedophiles, the most depraved among us, and it's reprehensible that officers face threats just for doing their jobs.
Well, all the ideas that the progressives are proposing just don't work. Look at what Ty Lyons was just telling us. They've been saying, oh, just release these people. Put an ankle monitor. When you release this guy, he still has a final order of deportation. He cuts the ankle monitor off. Then he drags an officer, and yet the left are still defending these people, saying that we need to stop these operations. These are some of the worst people in our country. And I love what Martha McCallum did yesterday. She interviewed the ICE officers and let them tell their own stories. Why do they arrest other individuals that are not criminals? Well, they find when they're out there arresting a criminal, if they're with someone here illegal in the
Is the migration crisis about to get worse?
Warnings the ECHR could force thousands more Afghans on Britain following the most consequential data leak in modern history.
Well, as the Prime Minister celebrates a new pact with Germany to stem irregular migration, but will anything be done to stop the hundreds of migrants predicted to arrive in small boats just today?
And the longest-serving female MP, Diane Abbott, is suspended from the Labour Party again for doubling down on her controversial comments about racism.
The school coach trip ends in tragedy as police confirm.
And firms will be lowest in Labour.
The annual butterfly count is upon us, but with the species in decline, will it help save?
And are teachers the most undervalued workers? Resident doctor strikes are all talk, but is it time we shifted our attention to showing a bit more love to Britain's teachers?
Beats the record. £5,000, but I've got to
The rise of challenging one who tried to record at 8:20.
Well, it was a feast of football last night, and they needed the most dramatic of penalty shootouts to do it, but a winning spot kick by Lucy Bronze meant the Lionesses remain on track for gold. We'll have reaction all morning from Zurich, and a dog among the Swans. Snoop buys a stake in the Championship Football Club.
Heavy showers in places again today, and the risk of further thunderstorms, but not everywhere will catch one, and particularly across parts of the east and southeast. There'll be some hot sunshine around as well. More details coming up with a full forecast later on.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm John Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Hello, very good morning. It's 6 o'clock. Coming up on the show today, a bus packed with school children and staff on a day trip crashes down a 20-foot bank.
Calls for a public inquiry into the Afghan data breach as more than 100 undercover Britons are also named. Plus, find out which US rapper is now a co-owner of championship side Swansea.
It's Friday, the 18th of July. A child has died after a school coach carrying children and staff on a day trip flipped over in Somerset. Police strip searches 1 year on from an inquiry following a Sky News investigation. Just how much have things improved?
They're through. After a nervous 14 penalty shootout, England reached the semi-finals of the Women's Euros. Thomas.
This is DW News and these stories. Syria's president has accused Israel of trying to destabilize his country and promised to protect the Druze minority. A US-backed ceasefire between Damascus and Druze fighters appears to be holding, but a Bedouin leader is under the government. Protests are taking place in cities across the United States to show opposition to some of President Donald Trump's key policies. Demonstrators reject mass deportations of undocumented migrants and cuts to safety nets for poor people. The protests were called in honor of the former civil rights leader John Lewis on the anniversary of his death. Extreme athlete Felix Baumgartner, most famous for his jump through the stratosphere in 2012, has died in a paragliding accident in Italy. The 56-year-old Austrian is believed to have lost control due to illness and crashed into a resort on the Adriatic coast. A girl was injured in the crash. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find lots more news on our website, dw.com.
Welcome back to the France 24 newsroom here in Paris. You're watching Daybreak, and I'm Catherine Viet. It's time now for a quick look at some of the top stories we'll be following this hour. Germany is hosting an immigration summit for EU interior ministers today, high up in the Alps. Part in efforts to revamp asylum seeker rules and ensure border security. We'll get the latest from our correspondent in Berlin, Nick Holdsworth. Despite a tenuous ceasefire, more clashes have been reported in Syria's Sweden province between militias linked to the Druze community and Bedouins. According to a war monitor, nearly 600 people have been killed in the ongoing unrest. U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal over a story it published
Today, the man accused of murdering Hannah Maguire pleads guilty 8 days into his trial in Victoria. Israel warns Syria attacks on the country will continue if troops are deployed south of Damascus. Donald Trump vows to pressure and orders the release of grand jury testimony in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case. And leaders in Tasmania make their final pitch to voters ahead of tomorrow's state election. Hello and welcome to ABC News. Accused of murdering Hannah Maguire in Victoria. Reporter Julia Bergen is at the courthouse in Ballarat.
Today, after court had adjourned yesterday for the day, we heard that Lachlan Young had indeed decided to plead guilty to the murder of his ex-partner, Hannah Maguire. Mr. Young had previously pled not guilty to murder. He'd attempted to enter a guilty plea to manslaughter, but this was rejected by the prosecution. But this whole case has basically, up until today, been hinging on intent, on murderous intent, and that's what he had been denying until today. So he had not denied at any point that he did indeed of death, that he killed her in the home that they shared in Sebastopol, that he then put her body in the back of her vehicle and drove her out to bushland where he then set it on fire. Hello and good afternoon. It is 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi, 11 a.m. in Jakarta. I'm Yasmin Yonkers, and at this hour, Malaysians push back against the U.S. Pick 4 ambassador. Protesters target self-proclaimed alpha male Nick Adams, calling his nomination an insult that could risk straining ties amid key trade talks. Japan pushes for its case for new levies ahead of an August 1st rollout, with a meeting between Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Tokyo. Key Asian economies also racing to push for reduced tariffs. And inflation in Japan stays
On this Thursday night, the Prime Minister has pitched to First Nations leaders on his new law that fast-tracks approvals of big projects. The skepticism?
I'm going to savor it. Then I'm going to listen.
This summit is a political theater.
It's next. Donald Trump's diagnosis.
Many in the media have been speculating about bruising on the president's hands and also swelling in the president's leg.
Being her way off.
Africa News. The news.
Eswatini announced on Wednesday that it would repatriate the 5 immigrants deported there earlier this week by the United States as part of Donald Trump's third country deportation program. Eswatini announced on Wednesday that it would repatriate the 5 immigrants deported there by the United States. The African kingdom became the latest nation to take part in the Trump administration's third country deportation program, but Eswatini's involvement drew some criticism.
We condemn that the bringing of hardcore convicts to our country to make sure that our young convicts who still have a chance of to be rehabilitated. We can approach the courts, the International Court of Justice, or any other legal institutions to possibly complain.
An Eswatini government spokesperson said the deportees were held in correctional facilities within isolated units. U.S. officials said the 5 men were convicted criminals whose home countries had to
allow what we can call a defector of those people that the American government know that is unwilling in their own country. The kind is legal attempt, and we condemn that the government
The Eswatini government said the deportees posed no security threat to the nation. The country said it was working with the US and the International Organization for Migration to facilitate their repatriation.
The Burkina Faso government adopted on Wednesday a bill at the Council of Ministers to dissolve the Independent National Electoral Commission. According to Minister of State Emile Zebo, this decision is part of the overhaul of the state in the institutional reforms undertaken to reduce operation costs. Election management will once again be entrusted to the Ministry of Territorial Administration as it was before 1998. Deemed budget consuming and inconsistent with the transition charter, the electoral body created through a political compromise in 1998 would therefore be eliminated if the Transitional Legislative Assembly validates the project. The transition in Burkina Faso was also extended by a national meeting until 2029 to rebuild and regain national sovereignty. According to the 2001 law on the electoral body, this institution is composed of 15 commissioners, including representatives from political parties and civil society.
Cameroon's President Paul Biya had just announced that he would once again be a candidate at the next presidential election. And now,
Africa's oldest head of state, and has long relied on powerful security forces to uphold his
flights. Captain switch off. Engines so there is investigation to India. The reports say that before the plane crashed, the switches controlling the fuel flow of the two engines switched off from run to cut off within each other. Aircraft is working. The London-bound Indian aircraft crashed on June 12 shortly after taking all one of the 242 people on board and 19 others grounded. US media say the Beijing deal with Iran. According to the report, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the foreign ministers of the UK, France and Germany agreed the deadline in a phone call on Monday. If no deal is reached by the deadline, the three European powers plan to trigger the snapback mechanism that automatically reimposes all UN Security Council sanctions that were lifted under the 2015 Iran deal. According to the report, the snapback provision is set to expire in October, with the activation process taking 30 days. European powers reportedly aim to complete this process before Russia assumes the presidency of the UN Security Council.
Tonight, the White House revealing President Trump's new medical diagnosis. The president experiencing swelling in his legs, now diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency. The White House also explaining this bruise in his hand, appearing to be covered in makeup. Tonight, we'll show you the letter from his doctor assuring the country the president remains in excellent health. City in under 24 hours. In New Jersey, we hear from a man who survived after getting struck by lightning. Tens of millions under heat alerts as the disturbance closes in Atlanta. An Israeli strike on the only Catholic church in Gaza. The parish priest, a close friend of the late says was the cause of her death.
That bruising on the president's right hand.
Minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin.
And what about his swollen ankles?
Chronic venous insufficiency.
What is that?
Our Dr. John LaPook gets into the latest report on the president's health.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois.
I'm John Dickerson.
We begin with the health of the 79-year-old president of the United States. Photos of President Trump circulating online have raised some questions 6 months now into a second term.
The pictures show that the president's ankles recently have been swollen, and there is bruising on the back of his right hand.
Today, trying to put an end to speculation, the White House released the results of an examination by the president's medical team.
A report signed by the White House physician, Dr. Sean Barbabella, describes the hand bruises as minor soft tissue irritation. It says they are the result of frequent handshaking and a side effect of taking aspirin for heart health.
And about the swollen ankles, the diagnosis is chronic venous insufficiency. Reason to call in our Dr. John LaPook for an explanation. So, John, this is a new term for most of them.
Good evening, I'm William Brangham. I'm Linda Vaz and Jeff Bennett are away. On the News Hour tonight, the rescissions bill goes back to the House for a final vote. We look at the impact on public broadcasting.
This is such an American institution trusted by people across political divides, and what's so short-sighted about it, I think, is that this affects mostly rural communities.
We speak to the president of Planned Parenthood to discuss the fallout of funding cuts to that organization.
Planned Parenthood is a part of the public health infrastructure. We are a safety net of safety nets.
And amid a violent week in Syria, we examine the state of that fragile new nation.
Welcome to Democracy Now!,
democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report, I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's military is continuing to attack civilians across the Gaza Strip with at least 93 Palestinians killed over the last 24 hours. Overnight, Israel bombed the Abu Khalus school in the Barej refugee camp, killing at least 4 people sheltering there. Another 3 Palestinians died when Israel struck near the Imam Shafi school in Gaza City. Meanwhile, Gaza medics say 2 women were killed when an Israeli tank fired on the Holy Family Church in northern Gaza, where Christians and Muslims were sheltering. The attack injured several others, including a child with disabilities and Father Gabriel Romanelli, the Gaza parish priest who was close to the late Pope Francis. He suffered leg injuries. Meanwhile, the U.S. and Israeli-backed so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has issued a statement blaming Hamas provocateurs without evidence for the deaths of 21 Palestinians killed at its aid distribution site in Khan Yunis Wednesday. Survivors blame GHF guards, who they say triggered a deadly stampede by firing tear gas into a crowd of starving Palestinians lined up for parcels of food.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.